Cuba, it's me. Welcome to another episode of the W.I.L.L.I.W show, which stands for Wrestling is Life. Life is Wrestling. Now I have a very special guest. So glad you can make it, man. This is Sarge, Scott McHugh, and I'm stuttering already. I'm so excited though. Thanks for doing this, man.
My pleasure, Mr. Habanero.
And the viewers are in for a real treat. And the real reason I wanted to do this is some of the guys I know a lot about. And I've only really known you for like 3 years, and
Right.
I only really know you through social media.
And through the occasional wrestling show
Yeah,
that
like-
we're at together, right? Because let's face it, I'm a part-timer because I'm a teacher, I have all this other stuff on the go. So my time that I do get to see you is limited.
Yeah, and then when you're there, there's 30 other people, so you only have like 5 minutes for each person.
Right,
and
yeah,
then
we
the
chit
show-
chat a little bit and off we go home afterwards.
Yeah, but it's nice. Like I really enjoy. Like for me too, I'm a single parent, so I have the cameraman, and then I just do it like once a month. Like I've been doing it 17 years. I can't do a full-time schedule. Like the cameraman has to come first, so it's
Yeah,
really a treat
absolutely.
out for me when I go, and I've grown to really respect you and like you. But I like I follow you through social media basically is how I
Right,
know you.
okay.
So I don't know that much about you, but that's why it's perfect on the show. Is we can learn together, and the viewers can learn maybe.
Absolutely.
So, like, when you were a kid, were you a fan of wrestling at all, or?
When I was a child, I think I was attracted to wrestling at about the age of 5. And what I used to watch a lot of was Canadian wrestling. So I would watch Maple Leaf Wrestling, which was at the time on CHCH television, Channel 11, based out of Hamilton.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Billy Red Lyons was the host, a former pro wrestler.
Oh
Okay.
wow, he commentated on a show I did like 2001.
Right, so he was the commentator on the show, but the programming was actually mostly based out of Maple Leaf Gardens, right?
Okay.
So their usual, I believe, pro wrestling historians would know better than me, but I believe that they used to do shows weekly or monthly at Maple Leaf Gardens back in the day. We're talking 60s and 70s, right?
So, what city did you grow up in?
I grew up in London, Ontario, where I live now.
Oh, okay, great.
Some other things, of course, that I used to watch, because of the geography where I lived in southwestern Ontario, I got a lot of channels from Cleveland, which is just across Lake Erie from London, directly across Lake Erie from
Yeah,
London.
right.
And also Detroit. So I would get a lot of the different American territorial federations. So, throughout Saturday, there would be AWA would be on in the 80s. NWA would be on. At night, they might have Memphis Wrestling on. Or Smoky Mountain Wrestling I could see on one of those American
Wow.
stations that were affiliated with other stations throughout the United States. So they would carry that broadcast through the country, right? And I could see it. And so I really loved watching wrestling when I was young. I have to tell you, I love the fact that it was this sort of man-on-man, aggressive action. I thought it was super cool. It was kind of superhero and supervillain-like in its presentation, which is not far-fetched from comic books, right?
But more real life.
But obviously, more real life, and much more real life. It's three-dimensional reality, right? And I was just so attracted to it on so many levels. And over time, I never at the beginning thought I would want to do that. I just thought I'd want to be the spectator. And that's what I was growing up. I watched it faithfully. And my parents, I think my father, we used to watch together. There was this promotion that ran, I believe, out of Burnaby, BC, and some of these people are on my Facebook page, these wrestlers are on my Facebook page, so they'll correct me if I'm wrong. And it was All-Star Wrestling, based out of British Columbia.
Yeah.
You know the one.
I grew up in BC.
Right, so you would know like Tom Malenko. No, I'm sorry, I'm having a mental breakdown. Sergeant Al Tomko. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
He got, some of the Stampede guys would do his shows too. I know
Absolutely.
Honky Tonk Man used to do
Yeah,
shows.
Honky Tonk Man used to work up through that part of the area too.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, under a different gimmick. Or was it under that gimmick?
I think it was a similar gimmick. I don't
It was
know.
a similar gimmick, but he also worked for Memphis Wrestling and other feds too.
Right.
But that's what I sometimes watched that with my father, but my family as a whole, they weren't interested in that. So it was a personal thing for me. Like I would lock the door in the den, shut the door in the den, and I would watch it because nobody else was interested.
I hear that.
You know what I mean? It's just not. I came from a very British family, Scottish family, and their mindset, and their interest in sports was very different. For example, my dad was a curler, right? He would go curling.
Nice. I
Right.
played in a curling league.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, it's just their interests were elsewhere. But over time, I became more and more infatuated. I loved the gear, the characters, the drama, the promo spots, the storylines, being addicted in the programming that got carried on from one week to the next.
And they kept evolving with the times too, like
Absolutely, and bringing in social issues and things going on in the world at the time were brought into
like the wars, and they'd have the
they would use that as they would play on that as part of the programming, and it just became more and more interesting for me. And as I got into my teenage years, in high school I played tennis.
Oh, nice.
That's what I did, and it was mixed doubles. Okay, so that I was, even then, even though I was so interested in it, I actually didn't think about actually doing it or participating in it in any way.
And it was more tight knit. Like they didn't want to let wrestling. Now there's thousands of schools, right? But it was like
And a million
didn't
indie
even know
fans.
there was.
Look on Facebook, they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
When I look through my Facebook feed, I've never seen so many championship belts in my life. There's an awful lot of champions out there. It almost becomes redundant that it's so common now.
Like when I started, there was like 5 promotions in Ontario. Now
That's
there's
right.
like 30 or something.
Yeah, there's tons.
Which is
Which
good
is
that
good.
the business is good, right?
It's good that the business is good and it's thriving, and I love the fact that these even smaller feds are finding their audience.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's good. But as I got into my late teens and I started going to university, I was working out at the gym this would be my early 20s. I was working out at the gym at York University.
Is that in London as well?
That's in Toronto, right?
Okay, so
yeah,
you
York
went to
University.
Toronto.
So I went to school in London for university. I went to Ottawa for Teachers College, and then I did my grad studies at York. But I did this really young because remember, because of my birth date, I started university at 18, right? So I finished all those first 5 years relatively quickly. So around 23, I started getting really into wrestling. At York University, when I was at the gym, there was a poster for a submission wrestling, scientific wrestling class, as it was called at the time. Shoot fighting, in essence, right?
Like MMA back in the day.
Yes, basically
little of that.
more grappling, jiu-jitsu oriented, but basically, yes, grappling, but submission style, right?
Excellent.
And so I started, I suppose, maybe in reverse of some other people, where I started off doing things more shoot, right?
Especially nowadays.
Nowadays, right, in terms of wrestling. And so my instructor, his name was Dale, and he had a mixed gender class that he would run in the combat hall at York University. So that's for judo and wrestling and boxing, all that stuff is there.
Yeah, even when I was in grade 7, I was in amateur wrestling. We would go against the girls too.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And in fact, maybe we'll get into this later on, but
yeah, we're gonna bounce back.
We'll go through the timeline.
Yeah.
But so in my early 20s, I started taking submission wrestling, and I discovered I was good at it.
Oh, nice.
And the reason, I guess, is that I have a work ethic. In other words, if I start something, I see it through to completion, or go as far as I can. So for as long as I was doing grad studies, I participated in this club. I didn't go and do tournaments or anything like that. It was just within that class environment. But my skills just grew and grew.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, here I am doing these rolls and break falls and all these holds and moves and kind of, in that wrestling, you have to be creative too, because you have to kind of always counter what's coming, and it's a thinking game.
Chess game.
It's a chess game. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So I thought, I think I could apply these powers to what I really love, which is pro wrestling.
Now, like before, like getting to that, all that, but like when you were a kid, you said your parents weren't into it that much, and none of your like family seemed like
Yeah,
they were
none of my
into it.
siblings.
But did
Yeah.
you ever go to like any indie shows? Or
Never.
anything?
I never even saw a ring.
Oh,
For
really?
even my, I don't think through my teenage years till I decided to start going to them in my early 20s myself.
Once
When
you-
I had more independence and I had income and you know
like
what I mean.
when WWF would come to town, or?
No, I don't like I don't like big corporate promotions. I know everybody aspires to be in the Fed.
Well,
right?
that's where the fame and the money is, right?
Right, but
yeah.
but I have a brain and I know I can make an income another way. So I don't have to go that route.
Yeah.
So I actually really like indie wrestling. And here's why. I like its intimacy, the relationship you can have with the audience. It's so close and intimate. It's not distant and cold. And I also like let's take, for example, the Alpine Club here in Kitchener. I've grown a rapport with that audience.
Oh,
They
without a doubt.
They know me, and they love to hate me.
Not so much anymore.
I know, I become a tweener. What's happening?
I know.
But we'll talk about that.
Absent makes the fire.
Or go fonder,
right?
maybe? I don't know. But so I thought, damn, I can take these wrestling skills that I've learned through Dale, who after that recently he passed away at a young age, so that disappeared when he disappeared.
Well, that's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. But anyways, and he was also a martial artist. He was skilled in so many things. He was excellent, an excellent instructor. And he also gave me a sense of having backbone and not being afraid of things or being afraid of being hit or bumped or knocked around or thrown around or bent and twisted into all kinds of contorted shapes. I'll survive.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
found with wrestling too, I was always so shy and scared of everything until I did the wrestling. I had a bit of confidence from it.
Right.
So I totally
Right,
know where you're coming
right,
from.
right. So when I sort of made connections through, believe it, when I'm dating myself, but in the early ages of the internet, in my 20s, there was this network. It was actually, I think it was created by the military, called IRC. It was Internet Relay Chat. And you would have to go on this network. You would have to log into some universities, any university around the world that was connected to this EF network.
I never even heard of this.
Yes, I know.
used to
So
go on,
that's
like,
I show you
Yahoo
I'm an old
chat
man,
and
how
stuff.
much of an old man I am, right? So you would log on to this, and there was rooms for chatting with different subjects. It would be number sign, just like you use number sign and something today to tag something or to
Oh, the hashtag.
the hashtag
Oh, okay,
something.
yeah.
But it's not it wasn't a hashtag. It was the name of the channel started with a number sign always, and the channel was just a room where that subject matter you could go into and discuss with people that were in there.
Oh, okay. Like
Okay.
when I was a teenager, we had like Yahoo chat or whatever. and
Yeah,
it
so
was-
imagine that in Yahoo Chat or or AOL Chat, one of those old online,
Forum, I
social
guess.
networks
Yeah,
or forums.
yeah.
They're a type of social networking. You would. So, anyways, I would go in this room and there's people talking about pro wrestling. And it's no secret that I'm a gay guy, and there was also a room for gay wrestling, or I guess gay wrestling fans, or gay guys who were into wrestling.
Right.
And so I went into this one room for pro wrestling, and I made friends and connections, and there was one individual that I made a connection with, and his name was the Sheriff. And the Sheriff was actually a real pro wrestler. And he ran a wrestling school out of Minneapolis that had been founded by Ken Patera.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, the
so
Olympian.
yeah, the Olympian. So I became good friends with him, and he took me under my wing. So when I started teaching and on my time off, even though I was living in Toronto at the time, I would fly out to Minneapolis on my holidays, summer break, March break, and just train with him all the time.
Seriously?
Yes.
Now, can I ask you a question? Like back then, the world's completely different now, but back then, for like this sheriff guy, was he able to be open about his sexual orientation, or was he?
No, actually, he was actually married. He was just comfortable with all kinds of people.
Oh,
That's,
because I
he's
just
just cool.
mean, times have changed where now like, people
Oh
are
yeah,
more open. Back
so
then,
open.
was he scared like to tell the other wrestlers or anything like that?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
Oh,
Okay, but I think maybe like I don't want to speak for him.
Right.
I'm not going to. But he had a wife, and but he was definitely full on with this pro wrestling thing. That's what he was in love with.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah.
That's the love of his life. I think even more than his wife.
I hear that. That's probably why I am single right now, right?
You know what? That's part of the reason why I'm single too. We'll talk about
Yes.
that. Okay.
No.